And for our final keynote for the 2015 CNP Expo, we wanted to follow the line of the buzzwords. And the buzzword, of course, has been EMV for the past year and a half. And I don't think it's going to stop being the buzzword over the next couple of years. But we wanted to bring up someone who had experience on both sides of the pond, if you will, who owns and runs businesses both in Europe and America, to give us some perspective of what he's seen, what we may learn, and what the future holds. So please join me in welcoming the CEO of JetPay, Trent Voigt.
Thanks, buddy. Well, I wanted to start out by first saying that I asked Neil beforehand to give a really bad presentation so I looked good. That was a really good presentation, so now I got to really work at this. So a little bit of information here. My notes did not show up on the monitor, so we're going to do a little bit of the old school. I have some note cards here. So with that in mind, I am Trent Voigt. I have been running processors for about 25 years. Been in the industry forever. Many of y'all know my gray hair by now. I have been running a processor in a processing facility in the UK as well for well over 10 years. And that gives me some distinct experience on what you all are about to see with the EMV migration into the States. I've experienced it, and you're about to experience it, which will be a lot of fun. So, for discussion points for the day, the CMP market, now, you know, you're sitting here going, well, EMV is a retailer issue. I'm card not present. I don't have to worry about the chip card and so forth. We're going to talk about that. You will have to worry about it. I'm going to talk about what Europe did really well in the conversion and what they didn't do so well. I'm going to talk a little bit about global reach and how you can probably take your products across the pond and how this is going to work with them coming over here, with the chip card coming this way, what you can do to go the other direction. And then you get my 2 cents, which is about what it's probably going to be worth of my analysis of the whole situation. So anyway, I've sat through a lot of bad speeches, a lot of statistics, lots of slides, all that kind of good stuff. I'm just kind of one of those people that kind of poke fun of everybody. So hopefully we'll poke fun of everybody in this room, and maybe it won't be so boring with all the statistics. So, for a short time, I want to discuss the where we came from, where this market came from. And wow, my props got hidden. So how many of y'all remember, this is a 1979 Sears catalog, okay? Now, the people with gray hair in here, y'all remember this. In fact, Steve mentioned it. We were talking earlier when I brought it in as a prop, and he goes, oh, was it your mom used to call it a wish book, right? Grandmother used to call it a wish book. And I had forgot that term, but that's exactly right. So, wish book. This thing is 1,500 pages. Now, today, you know, the gray-haired people, we all remember this. The younger people in the audience are going, what? I mean, don't you just go on Amazon and take a look? So, anyway. So this is where we came from. And, you know, when the catalog retailers came about, when it came to processing and acquiring, I mean, y'all are just the slime of the earth. I mean, that's all there is to it. We're just all bad people. I mean, you took cards over the phone? Oh my gosh, how could you do that? So now that I've completely ostracized my whole audience, I want to tell you there's only one group that's hated worse by the associations, and that's the processors that do it. So we've been doing card not present for many, many, many years. So since we're all hated together, we'll move on and see how we can make money together. So if you weren't LL Bean or Sears or J.C. Penney's, and I actually had somebody in my booth yesterday that said Spiegel's, and I forgot about Spiegel's. That was really, really good. Spiegel's was a really good one. I completely forgot about them. If you weren't one of those retailers, you were considered not so good. So, you know, what's wrong with CMP now? Today you have the internet. You know, first we were really, really bad. Now we're the rising star. So why not? So the wish book, as Steve would say it, the wish book had a lot of really cool things in it. And this is a little clip which I always thought was really funny. So this is Ralphie and the Christmas Story right before the Wish Book. So Ralphie's got his nice little magazine ad up there. Now, hey, this is a Red Ryder BB gun. Now, I'm from Texas, so that was probably on my wish list. And I can go about talk about doing CNP guns, but that would be a whole nother speech. So, I mean, we all know the reputational risk of selling guns on the internet, so we won't want to go down that road. But so let's go to the topic at hand. So this is a slide from the UK's fraud department. Now, if you look, EMV started in the UK in 2005. So if you look at 2004, you'll see that there's 218 million pounds of card fraud, and this is at the retail level. So this is the face-to-face guys. As they would say in the UK, these are the high street merchants. So if you look, it took about 2 years for it to convert over to chip and pin. In chip and pin, it dropped it down 70%, down to 72 million pounds. Now, that is chip and pin. With that in mind, I want to discuss, in the U.S., the issuers seem to be going heavily to chip and signature. I haven't exactly figured that out yet. I've talked to a lot of the issuers, and I've gotten, well, they can't remember their PIN for their cards in their wallet, so forth and so on. I really haven't figured out why. I mean, if you do chip and signature, you have 2 pieces of paper. With chip and PIN, you don't have that. You only have to give 1 receipt to the customer. You don't need a receipt for your till. With chip and signature, you have to have a receipt for your till. You still have the possibility of not my signature chargebacks, etc. Now, the issuers are saying, well, they can't remember their PIN. Well, I'm really not too sure that the people in Europe are smarter than we are over here. So I haven't got that figured out yet. But anyway, so this is your statistics. Now, you've got all that fraud, and then you have to go back to the theme and you say, hey, what did they do good? What did they do bad to make this all happen? Well, one of the things that Europe did, and this has a lot to do with the time that this happened. So at the time that the conversion came over, infrastructure wasn't really that good for the internet at that point in time. So retailers, European infrastructure on communications is a lot older than ours. So it took a lot longer for the retailers to get internet in their stores. So everything they put out cellular units, lots of GPRS units, etc. And what's really strange is Europe is the most awful place for change. They do not want to change. So today, even though the retailers have great internet in their stores, just like we do, they still put out cellular units. It causes a lot of angst among consumers because it takes a long time. You got cellular problems, so forth. So that's one of the things they don't do very well in Europe. So I have a restaurant that I go to outside of my office in London. It's a little Italian restaurant. Maurice is the vendor there. So this clip from RV with Robin Williams has a lot of the same facial expressions and a lot of the same issues I deal with Maurice. So Maurice comes to my table, and he has a pay at the table terminal, and he brings it to me, and I do my transaction, and and I put my PIN in, because I do have a chip card. I have a European chip card. So I put my PIN in, and then I hand the terminal, I'll do my tip, and I hand the terminal back to Maurice. I love Maurice to death, but he has really bad cellular service in his restaurant. And he ends up taking the terminal, and he sits there, and he gets this ugly face on him, and he goes over here a whole lot like Robin Williams. He walks over to the window, and he does this, and then he walks over, there's a staircase over there, and he goes around the staircase, and he tries to get there until he finally gets somewhere in the store, and he'll stop. And he'll go right there, he's got a signal, and he gets the transaction to go through. Sometimes that transaction takes 2 or 3 minutes. And I just can't figure out why Maurice doesn't go Wi-Fi. And I ask him, Maurice, every time I come over, I know, Mr. Voigt, I know, but, that's what they just keep sending me. So once he gives me my receipt, he has that little look on his face, which I love. So anyway, so let's go back to the slide at hand. So prior to CMP, or the fraud on CMP, that's what your fraud's going to look like after EMV gets here. So before, you had 29% of the fraud before EMV was card not present. After EMV, it's 67%. So you have the fraudsters out there. Now the fraudster, he's got, I have a good relationship with one of the risk managers at Visa, and so I'm going to take his quotes for this. So I'll give him credit for that. He goes, "Hey, the fraudsters out there, they got to make a living. He's got a family, he's got a car payment, he's got school tuition. He's got to make a living. So if you take his easy living away from him, where's he going to go? Well, this is where he's going to go. So today in the U.S., they just dupe the stripe. So they take a card, they re-encode the stripe, they walk into your high retailer, your electronic store, they buy a big screen TV, they buy, a DVR, so forth. They come out, they go over to the pawn shop, they pawn it, they go stick it out on Craigslist, they put it out on eBay, they make a nice living, baby's got a new set of shoes, we're all good. Now you take that away from them and you put a chip out there. Well, the fraudsters, some of them will adapt to that, some of them are really bright, they'll figure out how to work that on the chip situation, but most of them will go, new avenue, got to figure out how to make that car payment. How am I going to do it? How am I going to make that the private school tuition? So they're going to go somewhere else. They're going to go to the motor retailer. They're going to go to the internet. Now, with that in mind, the internet has some really nice features that were put out there by the associations. So you have 3D Secure, you have MasterCard, a secure code verified by Visa. And these are features that were put out by the associations that help combat fraud and that also shift the liability over to the issuer. And that's what we all want. We want the liability on the issuer side. We don't want it on the merchant side. Now, in Europe, in the US, 3D Secure is absolutely almost a dead product. You rarely see it. You see it in some of the really large office supply stores, on the net, those kind of things. But you don't see it anywhere else. People in the U.S. go, oh, well, it's cart abandonment. I don't want them to have to see another screen, et cetera, et cetera. Now, remember, last time I checked, only 27% of the cards were registered for 3D Secure, which means if you go out to the issuer and say, hey, I want to check on this card, and the card's not registered, no window pops up, but you still get the protection. So you still get chargeback protection on that, even though no window popped up. Well, now I'm going to go back to Europe. Europe basically made it mandatory. So when you do internet transactions throughout Europe, 3D Secure is there all the time. It's not there some of the times. It's there all the time. Most acquirers require 3D Secure to even write the account. So to give you how prevalent it is. In the US, we have a global entry where you can register with the government, come in, put your hand on the thing, and go through customs really quick. Well, in Europe, in the UK, they have something called Fast Track. Same thing. Recently, if you travel a whole lot to Europe like me, you get the advantage of entering into the UK system as Fast Track. Okay, so this is the same spot where you give them your passport, a background form on you. They know everything in the world about you. Then I went to pay the 70 pounds. Boop, up popped out MasterCard secure code. Now, that's the last place I'm going to defraud, because the next time I come in, I'm going to put my hand on the thing and I'm going to get and hauled off. So, I would like to go back and forth. So, not a good place for me to defraud. But that's how prevalent it is. They know they're not getting defrauded, but they still use 3D Secure. So, I think that product, as much as it's kind of not adopted here in the US, will become adopted pretty quick. So you need to look at that if you're an internet retailer. You might as well start going down that road, because when this EMV starts shifting over in October, and like I said earlier, I don't think that it's going to be 2 years in the States. I think it's going to be a little bit longer. Probably it's going to be 3 or so before everybody does it. I mean, you have I talked to a fast food chain just the other day. They have, for round numbers, they have like 8,000 stores with, on average, 4 units per store. And they're going, the cost to convert that is just huge. And I'm trying to save on an $8 ticket. I'll just take the beating. And they're like, if the fraudster wants a burger, we'll give him a burger. So, later on, their thought process is, hey, as units fail, we'll replace them with EMV units, etc. Now, they are going to have to make an investment in their software to be able to do that. But still, it's kind of a big deal. So you have 3D Secure for the internet. What do you have for the moto world? Well, let's see how Ralphie does with his BB gun here.
Okay, Black Bart, now you get yours.
My thought is, if you are a motor retailer and you're a call center, and you're not walking that floor over there and meeting all those fraud detection software companies out there, you're going to get your eye shot out. I absolutely believe that they will go to the internet, and then as 3D Secure starts playing heavily and they can't find the sites they want, they're going to go to the call centers. And the call centers don't have that advantage. They can't do 3D Secure. So how are you going to deal with it? If you walk that floor over there, I'll bet you a third of the booths have fraud scoring software, fraud detection systems, so forth. Go meet some of them. They're really good. I would highly recommend you look at them. I think I have JetPays right there in the middle, and I think I have Count on one side of me, and I have Verify on the other. And when I walked the floor, I saw a bunch of others. So those are all good vendors. They all have different algorithms. They all have different ways of doing things. Go investigate them. See how they work for you. Because don't get your eye shot out. Because that's what's going to happen. And it's going to happen quick. Because you're going to have a mass push for a bunch of retailers, especially the big retailers. The big retailers, well, I should say that. Some of the big retailers are ready. Some of the big retailers are ready, and they're going to be all there for EMV, and all the issuers are going to move their cards and so forth. So some of your quick fraudster moves, they're going to have to go down to what I would say the Main Street retailers, the smaller guys, to defraud them to start with, because the big ones are going to be ready. So they're going to start adapting in a hurry, because I was going to Best Buy, but I can't do that anymore. So now I have to go to this little camera shop down the corner. Well, sooner or later, that camera shop down the corner, he's got 2 employees. he knows that last week you screwed him. You can't come back in there. In Best Buy, you can go back in that store 15 times because you got a different employee at checkout every time and nobody knows. When that chargeback comes in, it comes into headquarters. Nobody has a clue who it is. But that small camera retailer, he knows. So the pool will dry up really quickly and they'll go to the internet. So in conclusion, I think if you're a true call center, a moto shop, you better look at that really quickly. That's going to be your worst hit. And on the internet, if you're not doing 3D Secure or something similar, you're going to get hit too. So some thoughts on the internet. I've mentioned that 3D Secure, it's somewhat of a dead product, but it's going to make a comeback. But there's other thought processes there. You can use other forms of secure payment, something like Visa Checkout. Now, Visa Checkout has the ability for you to use their checkout card, and they go ahead and do some fraud screening on the background, and then they send the transaction to your processor. So in this case, if you were using JetPay, you would go and put Visa Checkout on your site. Visa Checkout would do your fraud screening and some of the things, and they can look at a lot of data, obviously, because they're Visa. And then if they think it's fine, it would route on to JetPay. We would authorize it and then go ahead and clear it. So it just has an extra step, not too different than if you used one of the fraud tools. The transaction would come to JetPay, we would authorize it, we would send it on to one of the fraud guys, and they would score it, so forth. So it changes the transaction a little bit, but it's still a great thing. And if you use a checkout, it's kind of, I don't have to integrate another piece. I can integrate that into my shopping cart. Everybody else has to do the work behind it. So that's my thoughts on what's coming over here. So I do want to say this, in that the European risk manager of Visa and I talked about this a little bit. I want to make sure that those statistics are not so glaring. One of the pieces that we've talked about, and we both agree, there's somewhat of a false positive in those statistics. We don't know how big it is, but in 2005, the internet was just getting smoking in Europe. They were just starting to buy good. So if you took the EMV out of the puzzle, some of that fraud would be moving over anyway. So that statistic from 29% to 67%, maybe 7 to 10% of that would have come anyway. So that's my disclaimer on the statistics, because and it's really funny because the MasterCard person and I disagree, and the Visa person and I do agree. So that's kind of the way that is. So now I'm gonna cross over to global reach. So if EMV is coming across the pond this way, why can't you take your product across the pond that way? And we've had a lot of speakers. Steve's put a lot of international speakers up this week, and all of them have been very good. I've seen a lot of them. They've all been very good. So I'm going to add on to some of these, and I'm going to conflict with some of them. How's that? So there's a couple of ways to handle this. This is the normal way. It's the do-nothing way. And that's what's going on a lot of your internet sites right now. I just do nothing. And it produces a really bad customer experience. If you get a customer from the UK, you get a customer from Europe, they're on your site, they're dealing in dollars, they have to do math in their head, and we all know how many of us do well with math in our head. Okay, so that product is $10. How much is that in pounds sterling? Well, it's 7. And so it's not a really good experience. Not only that, it's hugely costly for you. So not only do you have a really large interchange increase for foreign cards, but you have a really large cross-border fee. In fact, in the April compliance, MasterCard raised their cross-border fees from 40 basis points to 60 basis points for local currency. What's even worse is they raised them from 80 basis points to 100 basis points for other currency. That's 1%. You're paying a penalty of 1% plus higher interchange to take foreign cards. So why do you want to do that? So that's number one. The second solution, and this is an elegant solution, is dynamic currency conversion. It produces a really good customer experience. You come on to the site, you probably put the flags on the top of your site so people go, oh, wow, there's a UK flag, and you click on it, and your site adapts into a UK environment. So you now have a good customer experience. Now, what I will tell you is it becomes really hard to manage your site because you get a conversion rate for all your currencies every morning, and you have to adapt all your pricing for your whole site. So when somebody clicks on that flag, the pricing is correct. And some of that, if you're dealing with a $5.99 product, the conversion rate comes in every morning. It's not $5.99 anymore, it's $5.97. Well, you kind of want it there. You kind of want those nice little price points. It doesn't work really well, and it's really hard to manage. Now, you get the benefit of getting a deposit in your home currency. So even though you took Australian dollar, you took New Zealand dollar, you took pound sterling, you took euro, the deposit comes in dollars to you, which is a really nice thing. Most CFOs love that. Now, you have a hidden markup ability. This is a good thing. So, you can put, say, a 3% markup on your currency conversion. And most of the time that is done with a rev share on your currency conversion provider. So maybe you have a 3% markup on your pound sterling. You end up getting a 1% rebate on that. The bank and the currency conversion provider, et cetera, get the other 2%, so forth. But you can play with your markup. You can go to 5%, so forth. It's an item that you can deal with. So it gives you a revenue share. You can kind of cover some of your costs. The third way to handle it is a foreign merchant account. A foreign merchant account requires you to have a domicile in that region. So if you're going to play in Europe, you need to be in the UK, you need to be somewhere in Europe. You're going to play in the Asian Pacific currency, same thing. So, if you're going, well, I don't have a company there, that's okay. We can work through that, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. You also need foreign banking. And, I recommend using a bank that is very international. I currently use HSBC for my international banking. I'm not plugging HSBC by any means, but it works really well. So they're an Asian Pacific home bank. They have branches all over Europe. They have branches in the U.S. So you can set up a Hong Kong dollar account, you can set up a euro account, a pound sterling account, a dollar account, all in the same bank. And when you want to move funds, you just move them between that on the internet. It's really nice. You don't have to worry about it. When you want to accept a new currency, you call your banker and you say, hey, can you set me up an Australian dollar account? I'm going to start doing New Zealand dollar. Can you do that? Sure. So it's really that simple. Now, the setup time to set up a foreign merchant account and a foreign subsidiary and so forth is a lot longer than doing a dynamic currency, or absolutely doing nothing takes no time at all. So anyway, my preferred method, and this is what I tell a lot of my customers, is the foreign merchant account. The setup time generally takes about 6 weeks, and that includes getting the bank account. And one of the things I always tell my customers that are moving across the pond, moving international, in the U.S., we are really wickedly fast at everything we do. We are the most service-oriented economy that you have ever seen. You want a merchant account? We will have that thing set up in 48 hours, and you will be rocking and rolling. You want a bank account? No problem. You go down to the bank and say, I want a bank account, and it is set up. You walk out, you've got a temporary checkbook in your hand, and you're ready to go. That's not exactly how it works in Europe. So in Europe, and I see one of my favorite banking partners in the audience. So in Europe, it'll take 6 weeks for you to get that merchant account set up. So you fill out all the paperwork, and they're really into wet signature. I mean, they're really into wet signature. There is no DocuSigns and stuff going on in Europe. They're so into wet signature, you sign it, you scan it over to them, and they go, no, FedEx it to us. Then it goes to Bob the underwriter. And Bob the underwriter is looking at it, and you call over there a week later and you say, hey, where's Bob? And the assistant says, well, Bob's on holiday. And you go, well, who's got this account? Well, Bob will be back in 3 weeks. It's okay. Well, but I need this account looked at right now. It's okay. Bob will be back in 3 weeks. It's all fine. So setup takes about 6 weeks. Just count on it. And whatever you do, don't go with the idea, I can get that bank account set up in a couple days, I'll push that off. Don't. They want to see your passports. They want to see notarized passports. Their know your customer makes ours look like nothing. So anyway, no gateway fees. So if you're using a processor like JetPay that has an XML interface, has all the tools to connect up, doesn't use a flat format file where you have to have everything in 256 byte format, all that kind of stuff. It has a good internet interface. You can get away without having a gateway. So the one nice thing about using JetPay is it doesn't matter what currency you're playing in. The format's exactly the same. So, do I have to integrate to a European processor and a US processor, and then, I'm going to Australia. Do I need to integrate to an Asian Pacific processor? No. You have one processor, one integration. You want UK, you want Euro, you want Australian dollar, we give you a different terminal ID, and away you go. So it lowers your integration time significantly. It lowers your software maintenance. So anytime there's a compliance change, you're not have to modify 4 different interfaces, so forth. It gives you a single account manager. You call in and you say, hey, I can't balance my pound sterling account. No problem. You're talking to the same account manager as if you couldn't balance your US dollar account. So now, the sweep of funds. Normally, this is a sales job for me on the CFO. The CFO is going, I don't know that I want pound sterling and euros and so forth and so on. Actually, you do. And here's why you do. So if you're going to be delivering product in another country, you're probably going to have delivery fees in pound sterling. You're going to have delivery fees in euros, so forth. If you're going to have an employee over there for call service, if you're going to have so forth, you're going to have bills in those currencies. So you can pay for the conversion to come over, or you can pay for the conversion to go back. Why would you do that? Leave some money over there in pound sterling and just pay them in pound sterling. Then you don't have to pay the conversion twice. So these are my thought processes on that. I have a Vanna White in the audience right there. There's Thelma. Thelma has an international white paper that CMP actually did with us a while back. Has a lot of these comments in it. You can, if you raise your hand, Thelma will get you one, and so forth. Or you can grab her on the way out. She's in the bright orange shirt, like our bright orange booth, so forth. So I will open the floor to questions at this point in time. Well, that was good. Exhibit hall's opening in 1 minute. See, I cut it right on the line. So thank y'all very much. I appreciate it. If you have any questions, JetPay's right in the front. We'll all be there.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. You have a clicker? Yep. So some quick housekeeping items before everyone leaves. We've got a networking break that's starting right now in the exhibit hall, so you can grab a snack, grab some food. We have a full day of education and sessions as well as the hall. We're also going to have the CMP Awards party tonight in the evening, so make sure you come back for that. And tomorrow morning we're going to have our merchant breakfast and a half day of sessions. So thank you all very much. Have a wonderful morning.
Nothing to lose.